May 23, 1945, near Lüneburg, northern Germany. A bare room in a requisitioned house smells of wet wool, sweat, and disinfectant, the air still cold even though spring has arrived. A British medical officer tilts a lamp toward a prisoner's face, hunting for the last place a desperate man might hide a weapon. The prisoner's cheeks are drawn tight, his jaw working like a machine that refuses to stop. Before the story locks into place, take a second to support this channel. Tap like if you want more fact-driven World War II stories told with cinematic clarity. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and share this video with one person who cares about history done right. And in the comments, WRIT, where you're watching from city and country, because this community spans the same map these events once scarred. The medical officer's fingers hover at the prisoner's mouth, because British intelligence has warned them what men like this carry. The searches have been thorough, clothes stripped, seams checked, pockets turned inside out, yet something about the prisoner's calm feels staged. A faint flash of blue appears behind the teeth, tucked into the left cheek like a secret word pressed into flesh. In that instant, the British realize they are not merely holding another defeated soldier, but a man who has been planning his own ending for years. He does not look like the monster the world has imagined. Without the familiar mustache and uniform, he seems like an exhausted clerk who has lost his office and wandered onto the wrong road. But the war has taught British soldiers to distrust appearances. It has taught them that the neatest paperwork can belong to the dirtiest hands. Outside, engines idle and boots scrape gravel, and the night hums with the machinery of occupation. Inside, history is about to turn on something as small as glass between molars. Only a day earlier, this same man had been shuffling through the wreckage of the Reich, trying to become invisible. Germany in May 1945 is a country of movement without direction. Columns of refugees, scattered Wehrmacht units, liberated prisoners, and men who still wear authority like a stolen coat. Checkpoints rise on bridges and crossroads, manned by soldiers who have survived years of killing and now must learn the quieter craft of sorting the living. The great battles are over, but the hunt has begun. British field security teams are part of that hunt, small groups trained to identify enemy personnel, secure documents, and pull war criminals out of the human flood. It is not glamorous work, but it is precise work, the kind that depends on stamps, forms, and the tiny errors people make when they think the war has ended. In the wider world, American factories have been pouring out power on an impossible scale. 96,359 aircraft in 1944 alone, so many machines that they seemed to announce the outcome before the front lines could. Germany's leaders understand they have been crushed by weight as much as by fire. For the Allies, victory is not only about taking cities, it is about taking men. The files are being assembled for trials, for testimonies, for a reckoning that must be seen and recorded. Himmler's name sits among the most wanted because he has been at the center of the SS system that made murder bureaucratic and routine. He has tried to make himself indispensable, imagining the Western Allies might bargain with him as the Soviet front hardens into a new fear. Instead, he finds British soldiers who treat him like a problem to be processed. The story's human anchor is not a general with a baton, but a sergeant at a barrier. Sergeant Arthur Britton of 45 Field Security Section has spent the war learning what uniforms hide and what documents reveal. He is surrounded by the ordinary sounds of occupation duty vehicles shifting gears, men muttering over cigarettes, papers slapped against a clipboard, and he knows that most travelers are simply trying to get home. But he also knows that most is not all, and that the difference between the two can shape the post-war world. On May 22nd, near Bremervörde on the River Ast, 3 men are brought to a checkpoint after attracting attention. 2 wear long military-style overcoats and carry themselves with that practiced stiffness that does not vanish when an army collapses. A third trails behind, less impressive in appearance, and layered in a strange mix of clothing, an eye patch cutting across the face like a cheap prop. They hand over the discharge-style identity papers common at war's end, betting that a low rank and a tired posture will let them pass. The bet fails because of a stamp. British intelligence has learned that ces men carry certain unit markings when attempting escape, and orders are clear: detain anyone bearing them. The third man's papers name him Sergeant Heinrich Hitzinger, but they are too immaculate for the roads he claims. Britain does not need the face, the pattern is enough. In 1945, paper betrays like a fingerprint. There is no dramatic arrest, only quiet classification and control. On May 23rd, they are driven to Barnstedt. Even in disorder, deference to the eye-patched man survives. Hierarchy lingers. Suspicion hardens. By evening, the disguised prisoner asks for an interview with the camp commandant, Captain Thomas Sylvester of the Intelligence Corps. The request itself is a tell. Ordinary sergeants do not demand private access to commanding officers, not in a camp, not in defeat. The man seems to sense that his cover will not survive deep questioning, and he reaches for the only lever he has left. The eye patch comes off, the posture straightens, and the performance shifts from hiding to claiming. He reveals his true identity, Heinrich Himmler. The reveal lands without ceremony. No salute follows, no special treatment, no negotiation table appears out of thin air. Himmler's expectation, formed by years of being obeyed, is that the world still recognizes rank as a force of nature. The British response is colder than anger, confirmation first, containment second, and only then the question of what use the prisoner might still have. Signatures are checked, details compared, and the mask is treated as a failed administrative exercise rather than a dramatic escape. The Reichsführer becomes a detainee number in a system built to outlast him. The wider war explains why Himmler believed he could bargain. Germany was strangled by Allied industry, an industrial tide no ideology could resist. In 1944, the United States War Production Board recorded $61.3 billion in munitions, $43.5 billion of it combat material continents of steel and fuel. Germany's synthetic fuel program briefly reached 124,000 barrels a day before bombing shattered it. His world ran on invention and illusion, both exhausted. Himmler imagined he could rebrand himself. In April 1945, he sought immunity through negotiation and failed, earning a place on wanted lists. Rejected, he chose disguise over defiance. He shaved his mustache, added an eye patch, became Heinrich Hitzinger, and trusted paperwork until documentation destroyed him. Once in custody, British headquarters moves quickly because the stakes are enormous. Sylvester alerts higher command, and intelligence officers arrive to take personal charge, including Colonel Michael Murphy, Chief of Intelligence at HQ 2nd British Army. The instructions are immediate and unromantic. Search the prisoner, strip him, do not allow poison. They know that prominent Nazis have prepared for capture with cyanide, a final act meant to deny the Allies a trial and deny victims the sight of judgment. Himmler has planned his last escape route with more care than his first. The searches begin as a kind of reversal of power. In the Reich, Himmler's apparatus has stripped prisoners of clothes, dignity, identity, and sometimes hair and teeth, turning humans into inventory. Now British soldiers strip him not for cruelty, but for certainty, because certainty is justice's foundation. Clothing is removed, seams examined, hidden compartments checked, the body treated like a container for danger. A tiny brass case and a glass vial of cyanide are found in his clothing and taken away. For a moment, it seems the British have won the small tactical battle that will allow the larger moral one trial to happen. Yet Himmler is cooperative in a way that feels calculated, and that calculation is its own warning. He has spent years watching systems work, and he knows where search routines often end. Pockets are obvious. Collars are checked. Boots are tapped. Belt buckles are opened. But the mouth is intimate, almost embarrassing, and embarrassment is a weakness even disciplined men can carry. Himmler counts on that hesitation, and he holds his final weapon where even a stripped prisoner can still hide something. Night deepens, and the camp sounds change. Boots no longer crunch in busy daylight rhythms, but scrape slowly, tiredly, like men walking through aftermath rather than battle. Somewhere a vehicle starts, idles, stops, the mechanical heartbeat of occupation. In a different building, security men conduct quiet questioning, so quiet that later records note it only as a gentle interrogation, a phrase that suggests restraint, professionalism, and the hunger for usable information rather than vengeance. Himmler has wanted to be treated as an important witness to history, perhaps imagining that importance might become protection. The British treat him as a fragile container of evidence that must not break. Then the medical examination begins, ordered precisely because the British do not trust what they have already found. Captain Wells of the Royal Army Medical Corps prepares to check every hiding place a high-ranking prisoner might use. Because intelligence has been clear, poison is common, and it is often concealed where hands cannot easily reach. Under the lamp, the prisoner's skin looks pale and waxed, as if the body is already preparing itself to become a relic. Wells's hands move with clinical calm because panic is what the prisoner needs, and the doctor must refuse him that gift. The exam is not violent, but it is relentless. Wells reaches the mouth last, as if saving the most awkward part for the end. He tilts the head, requests the prisoner open wide, and shines the light toward the back teeth and gums. For a second, it is only the ordinary anatomy of a middle-aged man, nothing mythic at all. Then the blue object appears small, lodged into the left cheek, a secret pressed into flesh. Wells moves a finger toward it, attempting to sweep it out before it can be crushed. And the prisoner reacts with sudden animal strength, jaw clamping down as if the mouth itself has become a trap. The struggle is brief because the weapon is designed for speed. Himmler wrenches his head away, teeth grind, and glass breaks with a sound so soft it almost isn't heard over breath and fabric. Poison floods the mouth, then the bloodstream, and the body begins to betray itself. He collapses, a heap of limbs on a floor that has held many ordinary men, never expecting to hold this one. Soldiers react instantly, moving him, trying to stop the inevitable. Because they want him alive for trial, alive for testimony, alive for the world's judgment. Cyanide offers no patience. Within minutes, the man who built an empire of fear has escaped the courtroom. His death does not feel like triumph. It feels like theft. The British have not been denied only a prisoner, they have been denied a public accounting, the chance to lay evidence against him in open court. The machinery of post-war justice has been assembling itself like an engine being rebuilt from wreckage, and now one of its most important parts has shattered before it can be fitted. Himmler has chosen the last form of control available to him, control of timing. It is the same instinct that guided the SS state: deny others choice, deny others voice, deny others the right to decide how the story ends. After death, the British must decide what to do with the body, and even that becomes a strategic problem. A grave with a name can become a gathering point, a dark magnet for those who want to rewrite the war. The Allies have already learned how quickly myth can form around ruins, how hunger and bitterness can turn defeat into legend. So the handling is clinical and unceremonious. Identification procedures, photographs for proof, and an insistence that the world see the end as it truly is. One published image shows Himmler dead, glasses still on, the face frozen in a grimace and ending without dignity, without uniform, without the stage he would have chosen. Time passes in a strange way around such a corpse. According to later reporting, his captors leave his body lying where he fell for days, while medical authorities conduct examinations and remove evidence, even taking plaster casts and extracting the brain as part of formal procedure. The body becomes not a person but a document, one more item in a war's final paperwork. Outside, the world continues its messy transition. Displaced families search for food. Soldiers search for roads home. Intelligence men search for names that still walk free. Inside, the architect of a terror system lies still, reduced to a fact that must be recorded. Then, quietly, the British take him away. A small detail of soldiers drives out toward the heath near Lüneburg, where the land is scrub and sand and thin forest, the kind of terrain that swallows tracks. There is no ceremony worthy of a man who once demanded ceremonies, no flags, no speeches, no moment of public closure. The grave is unmarked, the location kept secret, because secrecy is the final tool used to deny him a legacy. The earth closes over him as it has closed over countless others, but with one difference. This burial is designed to prevent remembrance. In the end, the man who tried to control history is denied even a place in the landscape. There is a bitter symmetry in that choice. Himmler's power has thrived on invisibility orders issued from offices, signatures that turned into transport lists, administrative language that masked murder. The SS system made death feel like procedure, as if the act could be purified by forms and stamps. Now his own end is treated as procedure too, stripped of symbolism and reduced to handling instructions. The British do not grant him the dignity of melodrama, because melodrama is what villains use to recruit the living. Instead, they deny him spectacle, and in that denial there is a kind of grim justice. And still, the moment on the bridge remains the most haunting part of the story, because it shows how fragile the last escape really was. A man who commanded fear across a continent is caught by an alert patrol and a careful sergeant reading a stamp. He is not dragged down by a rival's bullet or a burning bunker, but by the quiet competence of men trained to notice incongruity. He had trusted the perfection of his papers because he loved order, and order had been his religion. In conquered Germany, order is suspicious, almost obscene, and that suspicion becomes the net. His own apparatus, built on documentation, delivers him to his captors. The story also exposes a truth about the war's ending. The final battles are often fought in rooms, not fields. By May 1945, The Allied front lines have already done their work, and now intelligence sections, clerks, guards, and doctors become the instruments of the last campaign. The enemy is no longer a panzer column, but a name on paper, a man in a coat, a capsule in a mouth. This is where the war's moral burden shifts from firepower to responsibility, how to handle prisoners, how to preserve evidence, how to prevent revenge from replacing justice. In that sense, the medical lamp over Himmler's face is as consequential as any searchlight over a battlefield. Himmler's suicide is often described as cowardice, but it is also strategy. He understands what a trial would mean, witnesses, documents, the world learning the details he tried to hide behind euphemism. He understands that courtrooms do not merely punish. They define narratives, assign names to crimes, and build memory into law. If he cannot reshape the post-war world by bargaining, he can at least deny it the satisfaction of watching him answer. The cyanide capsule is his last piece of propaganda, an attempt to leave the story incomplete. Yet the photographs, the secret grave, and the cold British response all work against that attempt. The world gets a conclusion, just not the one it wanted. In the years that follow, the trials go on without him. Other leaders face the evidence, and the record of Nazi crimes becomes public, documented, undeniable. Himmler's absence does not erase what he built, because the machinery of his terror created too many witnesses and too many traces. His name remains fixed to the SS, and the SS remains fixed to its crimes, regardless of where the body lies. The unmarked grave does what it was meant to do. It prevents pilgrimage, prevents ritual, prevents the soil from becoming a shrine. But it also carries a deeper message. Power can vanish into anonymity, and history does not always grant villains the grand ending they imagine. The final image is not a gallows, not a courtroom, not a roaring crowd. It is a small blue glint in a prisoner's cheek, spotted by a doctor who refuses to look away. It is the sound of glass breaking, almost intimate, swallowed by the larger silence of a war that has already taken too much. It is British soldiers not celebrating, not even raging, but moving quickly, trying to keep the man alive because justice matters more than revenge. And when they fail, it is their next decision that defines the aftermath. No monument, no marker, no place for myth to root. The head of the SS ends as a secret under indifferent trees, and the world moves forward without giving him the legacy he wanted.